Having car problems? Well, with Rhoda, getting them fixed is as easy as ordering takeout. They'll come pick up your car for free, do any repair or maintenance needed, and return it right to your driveway. They'll even give you a complimentary video inspection of your car so you can see what needs to be done. Perfect for those of us that maybe aren't so car savvy. Book your appointment online at roda.com. And lucky for you, CityCast listeners get a 20% discount on any service for up to $100 off. Just use the code CityCast20.
What up, y'all? It's Joe Budden, here to talk about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to win real money while watching football. You can get up to 100 times your money.
Prize Picks will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code SPOTIFY. That's code SPOTIFY on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Today on CityCast DC, there is a new proposal to fix DC's troubled 911 call center, and reporter Dave Statter is here to talk about whether it will help make the system less prone to disaster. Today is Monday, September 16th. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC is talking about. Hey, Dave.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good, good. So we've had you on the show before to talk about what happens when Washingtonians call 911 and the weird call center at the end of the line. There have been some recent developments. What can you tell us about them?
The DC 911 center, quite quietly, was having problems that the public didn't know about, and that's 18 times when their computer system glitched, and a half a dozen or so of these that just completely went down. And on August 2nd, they weren't prepared when it went down and ended up not handling a call well where a baby boy died. And that caused quite a storm of controversy around DC 911, also known as the Office of Unified Communications. And it's put new attention on them. And the fact that in this case, they weren't very open about their problems with this computer system going down. And it actually highlights the fact that that's been the case all along. They're just not open and transparent and accountable. And that's what a new bill is now looking to change.
So what would this bill do?
Well, I'm a bit skeptical of the bill. I know that Councilmember Pinto, who chairs Judiciary and has oversight of DC 911, hopes that it will make the agency more transparent and accountable. I don't think it quite goes there. I think they mean well, but what I see in there, having really closely watched this agency for the last 5 years and know about it from its earliest existence, is that this may actually help them hide things from the public instead of giving timely accounts of errors or mistakes that were made by call takers or dispatchers, particularly when people are seriously injured or died, and those families and the public want answers.
Can you explain to me just what specifically this law calls for in terms of transparency and accountability, and why its author thinks that will help the situation?
First of all, we should understand it's an early stage. It hasn't even been submitted as a bill yet. And I think from some conversations, they may be willing to change, but the way it's written, it allows OUC 45 days to work with the DC Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency and other agencies to write an after-action report about the incident when something bad happens. And they have a whole list of things that could happen where they would kick in.
What do they have to do now?
Well, that's the thing. That's what they're currently doing, and they're using it as a way not to level with the public. Let me give you two major incidents from 2023 that I know at least one of them everybody will know about. The one is the District Dogs case where there was the flooding. 10 dogs died. And what happened there, even though they don't admit it, is that two call takers failed to put into the computer that people were trapped in the building and that dogs were trapped and the water was rising above them. They had that information, but didn't share it with the dispatchers. So in that case, there was an after-action report. We never saw it. Finally, to her credit, Councilmember Pinto, got released earlier this year, a draft, not the final. And they never described what the real problems were. They left out a key document, which is the basis for many of these after-action reports when it involves 911. And it's called the Computer-Aided Dispatch Printout, or CAD or CAD printout.
So her idea is to mandate that these things be released to the public so that they don't have to get a council member to do it for them?
Yes, that is correct. And I think that's a good idea. But here's the big problem. In the District Dogs case and in many others, I would say 90%, maybe 95%, the director of 911 knows within hours what the mistakes were. They use this report as a way to delay and to hide and to cover up, and often we don't get those answers. Yes, we may get them in 45 days, but I'm still skeptical.
So she also wants like monthly hearings?
That's correct. And I think that's
visits?
A great idea. That I'm all for. There needs to be a new focus on OUC. It stands for the Office of Unified Communications. And 20 years ago, on October 1st, I think, is the 20th anniversary of OUC. It was created to combine all the efforts of the individual dispatch groups for police, fire, EMS, and do it under one agency, which is kind of common in the 911 world, but doesn't always work great. I think they have shown the independent agency of OUC has lacked oversight, and doesn't have good input or take good input from police and fire and EMS. They don't work that well together. They haven't for many years. There are times when it gets improved, but most of the time there are problems. We don't hear about them, but I certainly do.
Can I ask you a question about these, like the idea of monthly hearings or unannounced visits? I'm a pretty smart guy, I think. If I held a monthly hearing or made an unannounced visit to the 911 call center, they could very easily lead me down the primrose path because I don't know what I'm talking about. You are obviously somebody who's poured a whole lot of your energy into investigating this. But if we're talking about members of the DC Council, I got the same question. Like, what degree of authority or what degree of expertise do they have to conduct this oversight?
I think the biggest thing that they probably can do with the unannounced visits is the number one issue right now, and has been since 2021, is staffing. And what I have learned happens when there's a planned visit by a council member or an advisory neighborhood commissioner or any kind of citizen group is they work very, very hard to put bodies in seats, even if they're not qualified, to get them there so it looks like they have enough staffing. But the unannounced visits will make that difficult to do. So I think that part they could handle. I don't know what else they could learn from the unannounced visits unless they're allowed to talk and get the type of honest conversations I've had with some of the people that work there. That might be helpful.
Let's be real, lawsuits are not fun, but with Paulson & Nace, at least they're a little easier. Paulson & Nace is a DC law firm in every sense of the word. It was founded here in 1979. Partner Chris Nace is a local who cares deeply about the DC community, even serving on the board of the local branch of the Living Classrooms Foundation in his free time. Nace and his associates Samantha Peters and Maya Perry handle medical malpractice, wrongful death, and other complex injury cases. And they don't just settle every case. They'll go to court. They'll fight for you. Paulson & Nace has even been recognized as one of U.S. News' best law firms. So if you have been hurt or lost a loved one because of someone else's mistake or negligence, call Paulson & Nace for a no-obligation consultation. Visit www.paulsonandnace.com. That's PAULSONANDNACE.com. Or call 202-463-1999. So lately, the weather in DC has been downright wacky sometimes. Tornadoes, crazy flooding, bad air quality, so much of it feels out of control. But I recently learned that September is National Preparedness Month, and it is a good reminder to make your emergency plan if you haven't yet. The yearly preparedness campaign was started by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, and they have a bunch of tips on their website to get you started. It's ready.dc.gov/NPM2024. One of the best ways to prepare is to make sure you have a way of staying informed, not just by listening to CityCast DC. Sign up for free email or text alerts from district officials on weather, traffic, public safety, and more by visiting alert.dc.gov. Another tip, build your emergency kit over time. Purchase one extra item each time you shop. A checklist is available at ready.dc.gov/kit. Take time now to prepare because later is too late. Everything you need is at ready.dc.gov.
I've got some exciting news for you theater lovers across DC. The Peabody Institute of the Johns Hopkins University is going big to celebrate 1 year of performances at the Bloomberg Center, DC's newest venue for music and dance. They're putting on a bunch of free shows this fall. I'm talking orchestra, jazz, and opera performances, all presented by talented Peabody faculty, students, and alumni. So for example, at the end of September, I'm really excited about the Polyaspora Festival, which centers Black and Brazilian perspectives in contemporary music. Or in October, there's the Democracy Day show. It's all happening at 555 Pennsylvania Avenue. And again, believe it or not, this is all free. But tickets are required, so explore the full concert calendar and reserve your spots now at washingtondc.jhu.edu.
So you mentioned, the 911 world. That is to say, there's like a whole bunch of professionals across the country who run centers like this for municipalities, for cities, for counties. Do you get the sense that the council or the people who are pushing for reform here have sort of consulted experts in this about what are like sort of best practices for making a place like this more accountable?
One of the things that I called for more than a year ago is to get those outside experts and actually create a 911 task force. If you recall, many years ago, one person died, a guy named David Rosenbaum, a New York Times reporter, and there were problems with how the police department handled it and EMS handled it. Well, they created an EMS task force. While it had problems, that task force had greatly improved EMS in the District of Columbia. I have accounted for at least 14 deaths that I can confirm and documented where there were mistakes made by 911, and 4 others where they're withholding information that are likely.
So do you think this is more of a show of force by council or a thing that's likely to, where there's actually a possibility of getting some real results?
The history is it's not likely to get real results. In fact, the council twice in the past year and a half has ordered OUC to relay certain data every month and tell us about incidents where mistakes were made. There's a dashboard online. They got that, but it's not filled with the data that they're asking for or really comes clean about the mistakes that are made. So that is a question I've been asking. What force is going to be behind it to finally make them do something about that? I think with the outcry from the public that's been after this latest incident and with the constant delays that people getting 911 to answer, and that means some people are waiting minutes to get an answer. You have to understand that every 911 center has a certain amount of time when the recording is used, and that's usually during a high-profile incident that's seen by many people, and because of cell phones, they'll get 30, 40, 50 calls even, and no 911 center can staff for that. But now, because they're so short-handed, you get the recording more as the rule rather than the exception, and people are constantly complaining about not getting an answer. And the stats that they do reveal show the reason why, because they don't have enough staffing.
Right, so what's the fix here? I mean, if you've got issues with this bill, where do we go from here?
I think the answer is something like this bill, but with a lot more teeth to get the transparency and accountability. You have to know what's broken there, exactly what's wrong and what the patterns are before you can fix it. So if you don't have good data and good information, which currently the public does not and the council does not, they've defied efforts to get any of this.
And the idea is that transparency would so outrage the public that they would then demand, better staffing?
I think that would help, but I just don't think it's going to be fixed on the Bowser administration for whatever reason. My suggestion is twofold. One is, like you're talking about, getting some experts in there with the task force to create a framework here on the 20th anniversary to make this work better. Or, as Councilmember Nadeau has pushed, is to take it away, particularly fire and EMS dispatching, away from OUC and give it back to DC Fire and EMS.
Dave, how did you get into this? I'm curious about this. You're a longtime reporter here. You're retired, and you're doing this sort of as a busman's holiday?
Pretty much. But I took a buyout in 2010 from being a reporter after 38 years. I never expected to get back doing this type of reporting. But what happened is, particularly around 2015, I noticed the problems were continuing at OUC. And I felt a little, like OUC is a little bit my baby, because I was one of the reporters who did the stories about 911 in the old days that helped create this agency, along with an inspector general report. So I said, why is this going on? And I started to look into it. And what I did is I reached out to many of my reporter friends, and I sat down with them and said, look, here's what's happening. I can show you this, this, and this. And nobody would bite. So I was kind of left. I got to do these stories myself. And this has been going on for 5 years now.
And it sounds like you're not very optimistic for the next 5.
Yeah, I think Ms. Pinto has the idea, but she's got to refine it. Let's get the transparency and the openness. And I think you're right. I think people will really be shocked about what's really going on, because it's not just the public that's not getting the truth. There are families that aren't getting the truth. And that, to me, it hurts me, because I know these families.
Dave, thank you so much for your time.
Anytime.
And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.